Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well and you're all staying safe. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I recreated SUPERHOT with C++ and in the Unreal Engine. And trust me, it took a while. You may have realised the last video was about 2 months ago. Damn, yeah, 2 months ago, which is not great. I tried to do bi-weekly videos, but that stopped as well. But yeah, this one has been about 2 months late. The reason for that is because basically I wanted to finish SUPERHOT's recreation before I upload the video. And I didn't really like doing that in the end. I think I would have preferred just doing devlogs every now and then. But here we are. And SUPERHOT is actually finished. Well, SUPERHOT. I suppose I should probably put that out there. It's not actually SUPERHOT, obviously. That's not the only thing I've been doing. I haven't just been working on that. I've also been working on a new game prototype. There may be a new devlog coming out soon on this prototype I've been working on. So make sure you subscribe and stick around because I may need your help with it. So make sure you check it out when it comes out. Right, so let's get into the video. There's going to be a few main topics I'm talking about, and I'm going to timestamp each one so that way you can just skip to the area you're interested in. Without further ado, let's talk about AI. So in regards to AI, first thing I did was set up the groundwork for the AIs using a weapon. In the last video I got the player using a weapon and you get the AI using it, it was pretty much the same. One thing that works differently for the AI is because they use behaviour trees. I can't just explicitly call them to use like an input control, they have to do something on the behaviour tree. Which is why I set up a custom behaviour tree task called shoot. And shoot consists of a lot of different things. I should have named it something better such as use weapon, but that's for future me to know about. So shoot can allow the AIs to shoot things, punch, or use melee weapons, all of which we'll get onto later on in the video. Something else regarding the AI I want to talk about is some customization options I added to them. Remember the last video I mentioned about curious AI? Well, I hope I did anyway. The higher the curiosity of an AI, the more likely they are to do different things, such as if they have high curiosity, they may pick up more complex weapons, or they may check out dead friendlies, while lower curiosity AI may not do that. So to show that in a way, what I did was the AI's colour is dependent on their curiosity value. Lower curiosity AI will have a darker red tone to them, while more curious AI will have a higher red tone to them. I also added an alert system so you could kind of tell what the AI are doing. When the AI I've locked onto, they'll have 2 exclamation marks above them, which I think is quite funny to watch them like chase you. If they found a dead friendly, they'll have a question mark above them as they're searching the area. And if you stun them, something which I will also get onto later in the video, they'll have like a shocked face above them. This could actually be changed out to a custom font with emotes above them, but for this project I decided not to do that because I didn't need to. The AI death is something I wanted to look into and I had a really good idea for it. I think possibly Unson Studio or Casual also suggested this as well, and basically when the AI die we have them fade to black. Initially I was having them just like kind of snap to black, but I thought a fade would work really well, especially with the slowed down time, and it did. It's really simple to do, but a lot of it you have to do in Blueprint because C++ with Unreal doesn't really allow for timelines, which are really useful for doing layouts between colours or vectors. And then finally for the AI improvements, out of many of the things I did, something I needed to change for death is something that Thomas Lab reminded me that in SUPERHOT when you kill an enemy they blow up into crystals, and well, I completely forgot that was a thing. So I made some changes to how enemies die in the SUPERHOT game mode, and here you can see some enemies blowing up. Unreal has a really nice plugin just called Apex Destruction, and it just basically lets you create destructible meshes. So I created a destructible mesh of the mannequin, and whenever the AI dies, their original mesh gets hidden, the destructible mesh gets spawned, and then it straight away blows up, which was really fun to see in slow motion. So let's talk about interactions. Set up interactions in the game, I use something called an interface, which is a general programming idea where basically different objects can share the same function but have their own responses when that function is called, if that makes sense. I created an interaction interface. When the interaction function is called on the specific object with the interface, it will do a number of things. The most likely thing is that it'll add the object being interacted to your hand. There's also a thing for player interactions I needed to do. I wanted it to show when you're looking at an object that can be interacted with, so I created some crosshair icons in Affinity, and then I added them to the game, so when you put your cursor over an object, the cursor changes to a little circle showing you can interact with this object, and then when you look away it goes back to how it was before. To check if you're looking at an object that can be interacted with, I do a line trace, which is the same as a raycast in Unity. Line trace is called constantly when you don't have a weapon in your hand. And if you're worried about performance, do not worry, I did a quick Google search, a bit of looking up online, and I found out that it doesn't impact performance at all really. And from my own testing, I have noticed no changes to performance, which is good, so yay. When you pick up an interactive object, initially I was just doing it so it just snaps to your hand, and it worked fine, but obviously it lacks some of that juice. And the Discord, they suggested doing it how SUPERHOT does it, where the weapon smoothly flies to your hand, and that's what I added. It has some quirks, so sometimes the weapon doesn't like to go in your hand straight away, especially if you move around. The way I overcame that was just making the transition even faster. With the AI picking up weapons, there was a few things I needed to consider for this, such as if the AI tries to pick up a weapon and another AI tries to pick it up, if the AI tries to pick up a weapon and the player wants that weapon, once the AI dies while trying to pick up a weapon, once they get stunned while picking up a weapon, a number of things. So, the way I did this was if there's two different AIs seeing a weapon, the AI that sees it first claims it basically, and the other AI will just then ignore it. If the AI is picking up a weapon, the player can steal the weapon of them, because the player will have more priority over the AI. And this calls an interruption event, and this interruption event I used, so if the enemy dies whilst trying to pick up a weapon, this interruption event gets called, and all it does is, if the weapon doesn't have anyone else to go to, it just gets thrown, which worked really well. So as I mentioned previously about curious AI, different items have different curiosity values. So weapons, for example, some are higher values than others, and if they have a high enough curiosity to react to a weapon, they will go up and pick it up. And I created this using some header files which I just used throughout. I used a team header file, which is easier to distinguish which team everything is on, and that's how the enemies react to different things using their sensing. And I also created a curiosity header file, which just holds different values for different objects and such. Before I can properly talk about the weapon setup in the game, I want to talk about the melee. Melee is something I've not really touched before in game development, and something that kind of scares me, but with this project I learned a lot about doing it. So first of all, in SUPERHOT you can throw weapons, let's talk about that straight away. The AI and player both need to do this. If you run out of ammo or the enemy runs out of ammo, and you try to shoot, you'll get a little pop-up that tells you you're out of ammo, then if you try and shoot again, you'll throw the weapon. Throwing the weapon is able to stun enemies. You can also right-click to throw. The only issue I had with throwing was the collisions. I was initially just using the meshes collision itself, but that gave me a few issues with how the physics was working with it. So I had to add to each weapon a box component, which just brought on a lot more issues with objects getting stuck in the air. However, this was the best course of action to make throwing work and feel good. I mentioned previously about stunning. So, if you hit an enemy with a thrown weapon, you can stun them, and when you stun the enemy, the alert will pop up as I mentioned previously. I set up a basic animation using some provided animations from Unreal, and it's basically just a hit animation, and it basically just makes the enemy look like they're stunned for a few seconds. When an enemy's stunned, they will throw their weapon on the floor, and you can have an option to kill them before they regain consciousness, is a good way of putting it, or become unstunned. Punching. As I mentioned, melee is something I've not done before and scares me. Punching is definitely what scares me. It was quite hard to set up with the animation. Obviously I wanted the switch perspective thing in the game, but that also made the animations a little bit hard to manage. I got the animation from Mixamo and I tried my best to make it so you could see if you're punching in first and third person, but if you want the best experience, third person is probably where it's at. So if you punch, you stun an enemy, and if you punch them again while stunned, you'll kill them. It's pretty simple. I did also have it so if you punch a physics object, you'll send it flying like a falcon punch, but for the full release I turned that off. Maybe I should turn that back on. Let me know down below if I should turn that back on. And finally, let's talk about slashing weapons. So you're going to see soon a katana. And basically the katana needs to be able to slash. And it's pretty much the same as using any other weapon. When you slash, you perform an animation, and anything that gets hit by the sword when it's in the slashing mode will take some damage. So initially for this project I had planned not to model too much, but when I got onto weapon creation I realised I did need to model a little bit. So I wanted to create a few base weapons. One was a pistol, which I made in the last video. I wanted an SMG, a shotgun, a shuriken and a katana, because I think the katanas in SUPERHOT are super fun to use. So I created them all in Blender, and you should be able to see them all now in Blender. They were relatively easy to make. They weren't the best models. For the guns, I usually just got the pistol and changed that to make a shotgun or a SMG, using the original SUPERHOT ones as like a reference. So let's talk about each weapon in turn. There's the SMG first of all, which has an automatic firing setup. This is quite fun to create. Basically, when you shoot once with the SMG, if the weapon is automatic, it will continually call the shoot function until you release it, and then it will stop the shoot function. And I do that using a timer, which is really handy. Shotgun. So a shotgun is more complex. I've never actually created a shotgun in any game before, and figuring out how to get all the bullets to kind of spawn randomly was a little bit painful. I initially followed one method where it created a circle of line tracers, I don't know, it was very random, and the bullets should follow that, but the bullets were not following the line, and I had no idea why. So in the end, I opted for a simpler method. So what this spawning method does is it will spawn a bullet in a straight line similar to the pistol, but then add some random offset to it to make it go in a different direction. Next were some melee weapons, and melee is also something I've never really touched on in games before. So first of all, I created a shuriken. I already had weapon throwing implemented, so the shuriken was pretty much the same thing. Basically, you just throw it straight away. However, there was something I noticed with it which is a bit weird. The shuriken was very bouncy. If it hit a wall, it would just bounce and fly away. And when I looked at SUPERHOT's original one, the shurikens stick into objects, if not or they break. So what I opted for was when it hits something, it usually disables the physics of it so it sticks into the wall. The katana was rather similar to the shuriken, basically, another melee weapon. Doing damage with the katana was rather simple. All I really do is do a line trace forward from the katana, and if it hits anything, then therefore you've hit something and you need to deal some damage to it. Something that you may notice about the katana is the animation for it is quite honestly amazing. It's really good, isn't it? Now, this is a programming project, so I didn't want to spend too much time focusing on getting nice animations, so the katana was made using Blueprint to and a timeline to just literally move it forward and move it back up, and it worked well enough and did what I needed it to do. Finally, I want to talk about the weapon sounds and particles you can see and you may have been able to hear, and if you can't hear them, here are some sounds now. The only thing I really want to talk about this was basically my reaction to adding them really surprised me. I didn't add sounds until quite late. Sounds aren't one of my favourite things to do when I do game development, but adding the sounds changed the whole game for me. It added so much to the world and brought it to life. I was really shocked by how much sounds can do, and it's given me a better appreciation for sounds in games, honestly. Playing the game without sounds was just so dull compared to playing it with sounds, so yeah, if you're making a game, make sure you add sounds. Unless the game actually calls for no sounds, then don't, but you know what I mean. Finally, let's talk about the final steps I had to do in the level design. So level design is something I don't particularly enjoy, I realised. It's not one of my favourite things to do, but obviously I had to do it anyway. So I used a document in Affinity to start creating a basic level design of how things were going to go, where different weapons were going to appear and where enemies were going to appear. Rather than create a few different levels, I decided I'm going to create one large level showcasing different mechanics of this project, because again, this is meant to be a mechanic focused project rather than making it look all beautiful and polished. There was something I realised while creating this project though, putting enemies in there hand by hand, whilst that was fine and easy, it wasn't as fun for levels. So what I created was an enemy spawner. When you go over a certain trigger box, you basically spawn a few enemies in from another door, like SUPERHOT does in a way. And there was a colour fade for that, similar to SUPERHOT. Adding that in allowed the level design to be a lot better and just more fun, as the player wouldn't always know how many enemies were going to appear or where they were going to come from rather. That was basically it for level design and finishing up. The level design isn't the best work in the world. It's basically just walk through a corridor, go up some stairs, fight some more enemies, and then go to a big room to fight enemies, and there you go, you win. But like I said, level design is not my passion. It's not something I thoroughly enjoy, so I was happy with what I got, and I'm glad I actually planned out more rather than just doing whatever I want. And Unreal makes level design really easy, to be honest. And it's back to me again. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you watched it, thank you very much for sticking to the end. I hope you're all doing really well. There were other things I could talk about in the video, like some other general improvements I made to the project, but this video already seems rather long, so I decided I'm not going to talk about them because they're not as important. If you're interested in hearing about them, just ask me on Discord or in the comments and I can tell you about other general things I did that didn't make the video. Talking about Discord and such, as you can see I've not been as regular recently. I am going to be changing that. With the next mechanic project, which is about portals, I'm hoping to do that a bit more regular devlog style, or if this new idea, this prototype I've had, kicks off a bit better than I hope it will, then maybe that'll become a regular devlog series. Who knows, we'll just have to wait until the coming weeks, as I'm going back to uni rather soon. Talking about that, if you want to see my face more and hear me talk more, you should join the live streams on Discord. I've been live streaming quite a lot this past few weeks. When I can, I just tend to hop on a stream for a few hours in the morning or early afternoon, work on the prototype or on this project, and then that's it, and we have a lovely time. So if you feel free, make sure you follow me on Twitch and join our Discord. We just hit over 50 members on the Discord, so that's pretty cool. So the next project, as I mentioned, is going to be about portals, so make sure you stay tuned to hear more about that and to hear more about our special prototype project, which if you've been following me on Twitter, Discord or Twitch, you'll definitely know about. And I think it's a pretty cool idea, and I need your feedback for it when stuff gets released for it, so make sure you stick around. And again, thank you everyone for joining me. Sorry I've been gone for so long, but again, we will be back to regular scheduled devlogs and Soul rather soon. Thank you everyone, and goodbye.